Let's dive into one of the internet's most persistent and, frankly, most terrifying legends, the Red Room. It's this story that gets whispered about in forums and chat rooms, a true modern-day digital boogeyman.
So, what even is the legend? Well, the story goes that there are these hidden websites on the dark web where you can pay, usually in crypto, to watch live, interactive torture and murder. The lore even suggests the audience can, give commands to the person on screen. It's a truly chilling idea.
And that right there is the million-dollar question. When you strip away all the Hollywood sensationalism and the online horror stories, does the whole idea of a Red Room actually hold up? We're going to separate the fact from the fiction. Okay, so to start, we really need to look at the technology itself. Because once you understand how the dark web actually functions, the entire idea of a live interactive Red Room, well, it just starts to fall apart. To get on the dark web, you have to use a browser called Tor, which stands for the Onion Router. Its entire purpose, its whole reason for being, is to make you anonymous by wrapping your internet traffic in multiple layers of encryption, kind of like, you guessed it, an onion. What's really interesting is how it gets you that anonymity. See, your connection doesn't go straight from point A to point B. Nope, it takes this crazy detour, bouncing randomly between at least 3 different volunteer computers or nodes that could be anywhere in the world. This whole process makes it incredibly difficult to trace where the connection even started. But here's the catch, the big paradox. Bouncing your connection all over the globe creates a massive technical problem if you're trying to stream video. Live streaming needs a fast, stable, high-bandwidth connection. Tor is the exact opposite of that. It's slow, it has super high latency or lag, and its main focus is always going to be anonymity, not speed. And this number really says it all. A delay of 30 to 60 seconds is pretty common on Tor. I mean, just think about that for a second. How could an audience interact with a live event in real time if their commands only showed up a full minute later? The whole live part of it would be completely shattered. The video itself would just be a buffering, freezing nightmare. And even if you could get past the awful streaming quality, there's the security risk for the criminals themselves. Streaming high-quality video to hundreds of people requires a huge amount of data. That massive data flow is basically a giant flashing beacon for law enforcement. They can use techniques like traffic correlation attacks to pinpoint the server's location. It's just way too noisy, way too risky. It's suicide for their operation. So that leads to a pretty obvious question, right? If these things aren't technically possible, why are there so many links on the dark web claiming to be Red Rooms? Well, the answer is simple. It has nothing to do with violence and everything to do with greed. The scammer's playbook is almost laughably predictable. First, they throw up a spooky-looking page, maybe with a countdown timer to create a sense of urgency and FOMO. Then, they hit you with the paywall, demanding you send some Bitcoin or Monero for access. And finally, the moment you send that money, poof, the site disappears, your crypto is gone, and you're left with nothing. And this is the twisted genius of the scam. It works so well because the victim can't do anything about it. I mean, you can't exactly walk into a police station and say, "Excuse me, officer, I was just scammed out of my Bitcoin while I was trying to pay to watch a live murder." You're completely trapped by what you were trying to do in the first place. So who's actually behind these fake sites? It really boils down to one of two groups. Either it's just regular scammers looking for an easy payday from people who are morbidly curious, or it's law enforcement. They run what are called honeypots to catch and identify people who are actively looking for this type of horrifying illegal material. Either way, there's no live show waiting for you. Now, this is an incredibly important point we need to make. Just because we're debunking the Red Room myth does not mean that truly horrific content doesn't exist online. It absolutely does, but it takes a very different and you could argue a much more insidious form. The myth of the Red Room is this live, interactive, almost theatrical spectacle. The reality, which is often called hurtcore, is far more grimly practical. It's all pre-recorded. We're talking about often low-quality videos of real abuse that are sold and exchanged as static files in these private, encrypted groups. There's no live stream, no audience voting, just the quiet, awful trade of recorded atrocities.
People often bring up the case of Peter Scully as proof that red rooms are real, but it's actually the exact opposite. He created absolutely horrific videos of abuse, but they were all pre-recorded and then sold as files to buyers. His whole operation proves that the hurt core model is very, very real, while also showing that the logistical nightmare of a live show was never even part of his plan.
So this all brings us to one final, really fascinating question. If the technical evidence is so clear that these things can't work, why does this legend just refuse to die? What is it about the idea of a red room that has such a powerful grip on our collective imagination?
Well, there are three main things keeping it alive. First, there's the iceberg fallacy. You've probably seen that diagram of the internet that makes us imagine the dark web is this infinitely deep pit of pure evil. Second, pop culture has a lot to do with it. Movies and crime shows have shown us what a red room would look like, which makes it feel plausible. And finally, a cool concept called legend ostension. Basically, scammers create fake sites because they know people are looking for them, and the very existence of those fakes reinforces the belief that the real thing must be out there somewhere. So, here's the bottom line. The red room, as we think of it, as pop culture defines it, is a myth. It's a scary story built on a misunderstanding of how technology works, and it's a story that's preyed upon by scammers. Really, it's just a modern digital campfire story. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. The legend of the Red Room sticks around not because of any evidence, but because of what it represents. It's a manifestation of our deepest anxieties about anonymity, about morality, and about the dark corners of the digital world. So maybe the real question isn't whether Red Rooms are real, but what our fascination with them reveals about us.